All right, my faithful listeners, I am here to read the first book of the Stonfalls Mage lore. It's the Ancestors in the Dunmer abridged edition. Ghosts walk among them. The departed spirits of the Dunmer, and perhaps those of all races, persist after death. The knowledge and the power of departed ancestors benefit the bloodlines of the Dunmer houses. The bond that forms between living family members and their immortal ancestors is partly blood, partly ritual, and partially volitional. Anyone brought into the house through marriage is bound through ritual and oath into the clan, gaining communication and benefits from the clan's ancestors. However, his access to the ancestors is less than that of his offspring, and he still retains some access to the ancestors of his own bloodline. The family shrine. Each residence has a family shrine. In poor homes, it may be no more than a hearth or an alcove where family relics are displayed and venerated. In wealthy homes, a room is set aside for the use of ancestors. The shrine is called the waiting door and represents the door to oblivion. Here the family members pay their respects to the ancestors through sacrifice and prayer, through oaths sworn upon duties, and through reports on the affairs of the family. In return, the family may receive information, training, and blessing from the family's ancestors. The ancestors are thus protectors of the home and especially the precincts of the waiting door. The mortal chill. Spirits do not like to visit the mortal world, and they do so only out of duty and obligation. Spirits tell us that the other world is more pleasant, or at least more comfortable, for spirits than our real world, which is cold, bitter, and full of pain and loss. Mad spirits. Spirits that are forced to remain in our world against their will may become mad spirits or ghosts. Some spirits are bound to this world because of some terrible circumstances of their death, or because of some powerful emotional bond to a person, place, or thing. These are called hauntings. Where's Sam and Dean when you need them? Some spirits are captured and bound to enchanted items by wizards. If the binding is involuntary, the spirit usually goes mad. A willing spirit may or may not retain its sanity depending on the strength of the spirit and the wisdom of the enchanter. Some spirits are bound against their wills to protect family shrines. This unpleasant fate is reserved for those who have not served the family faithfully in real life. Dutiful and honorable ancestral spirits often aid in the capture and the binding of wayward spirits. These spirits usually go mad and make terrifying guardians. They are ritually prevented from harming mortals of their clans, but that does not necessarily discourage them from mischievous or peevish behavior. They are exceedingly dangerous for intruders. At the same time, if an intruder can penetrate the spirit's madness and play upon the spirit's resentment of his own clan, the angry spirits may be manipulated. Oblivion. The existence of oblivion is acknowledged by all Tamriel cultures. but there is little agreement on the nature of that other world, other than that it is the place where the Daedra live, and that communication and travel are possible between this world and oblivion, though through magic and ritual. The Dunmer do not emphasize the distinction between this world and oblivion, as do the human cultures of Tamriel. They regard our world and the other world as a whole with many paths from one end to the other, rather than two separate worlds of different natures with distinct borders. This philosophical viewpoint may account for the greater affinity of elves for magic and practices. Foreign views of Dunmer and ancestor worship and spirit magic. The Altmeri and the Bossmeri cultures also venerate their ancestors, but only by respecting the orderly and blissfully passage of the spirits from this world to the next. That is, wood elves and high elves believe it is cruel and unnatural to encourage the spirits of the dead to linger in our world. Even more grotesque and repugnant is the display of the bodily remains of the ancestors in ghost fences and ash pits. The presentation of finger bones in the family shrine, for example, is sacrilegious to the Bosmer, who happen to eat their dead, and barbaric to the Altmer, who inter the ashes of the dead. So, got three different elves. The dark elves honor the dead and set up a shrine. The high elves burn their dead and inter their ashes. And then the Bosmer eat their dead. Wow. The human cultures of Tamriel are ignorant and fearful of dark elves and their culture, considering them to be inhuman and evil, like orcs and Argonians, but more sophisticated. The human populations of Tamriel associate Dunmer ancestor worship and spirit magic with necromancy. In fact, this association of the dark elves with necromancy is at least partly responsible for the dark reputation of Dunmer throughout Tamriel. This is generally an ignorant misconception, for necromancy outside the acceptable clan rituals is almost abhorrent abomination in the eyes of the Dunmer. So essentially, if you're playing a dark elf, you're really not a necrophiliac. I mean a necromancer. The dark elves would never think of practicing sorceress necromancy upon any dark elf or upon the remains of any elf. However, dark elves consider the human and orcish races to be little more than animals. This is no injunction against necromancy. There is no injunction against necromancy upon such remains or the remains of any animal, bird, or insect. And the fact that they consider humans and orcs to be less than or just a tad bit above animals explains their haughtiness. Okay, that is the end of the reading. So let me stop the video and edit it.